Government spending and debt doesn't cause inflation. Oh man, this is a man after my heart. This guy's a man after my heart. I read this, I said, holy crap, this guy gets it. Oh, it's fantastic. If I was 57 flavors, I might invite this guy to come on over, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not 57 flavors because I like the ladies. I like the ladies. I like the ladies. I have a lady, my AI wife, Charlotte. I like her. Does she still like me is a question. She should. I'm a fresh cut. No, look at that. She got to cut my hair here a little bit. My hair's getting long, looking like a freaking hippie. Get out and go freaking burn a flag, hippie. All right, so here's my man, this guy right here. Who is this? This is Richard Vague. He's not very vague in this article, which I like. And Richard Vague is the author of numerous books. The Paradox of Debt, A New Path to Prosperity Without Crisis. All right. All right. He's a couple of co-founder of a couple of banks. All right. He's in the electric and natural gas supply company. All right. So this is my kind of guy. Yeah, not my type though. Not my type. All right. Because I like the ladies. I wonder how many people are literally sitting here right now offended by that. They're like, yeah, can you imagine? Just being offended by some yappy guy in his basement in his lime shirt that says Heritage Wealth Planning because he said something silly. Oh my goodness, life's too short. All right, let's check them out. Hold on a second. Inflation became a prominent issue in 2021 and 2022. And during the summer of 2022, when it reached 9%. Again, what do we say about inflation? Well, you read my book, Relax and Retire, and you realize inflation via the CPI is straight up silly. I was just talking to these people in Virginia. These guys I cannot tell you how much I love the people I work with. Just great people. You know, the wife sacrificed a pretty significant job to raise her kids because their kids both had some issues health-wise. And women who sacrifice their careers for their families, that is what makes America freaking great. And if you're not married, don't be offended. I'm just like, I just like my wife. She was making more money. She was freaking a junior bond analyst, or maybe even a bond analyst. She was analyzing bonds for a mutual fund company in Phoenix, making well more than twice what I was making when I was working at Vanguard or Schwab, I forgot. And when we got pregs, because I got pregs too, she sacrificed it, you know what I'm saying, to raise the kids. And she was well on her way to being like a bond portfolio manager because she's freaking just, everyone loves her because she kicks ass, take names, and she's attention to detail. She is good at what she does. And seeing some women, and men too, I mean, it just doesn't happen as much with men, but apparently it's happening a little bit more. But that's fine. I can't tell you how appreciative I am of women who sacrifice their careers to take care of their kids. A little bit of gratitude, my friends. A little bit of gratitude as opposed to, oh, you're part of was it patriarchy or is it matriarchy? Patriarchs are men, I think. You're part of the patriarchy. Yeah, damn right. You know why is it patriarchy? Because men provide for the women and protect the women who provide for the kids and protect the kids. That's how it works. All right, so let's keep reading here. While the inflation scare has erased or eased, because it has gone down, the pervasive notion that government debt and spending cause inflation haven't. Indeed, this misperception about inflation illustrates nicely the underlying misunderstandings about government debt, which too often cause poor policy choices and skew our capacity to predict or understand economic crisis. 100%. Fears of inflation arise in part from the fact that its sources seem mysterious and uncontrollable, while it extracts immediate adverse effects on essentially all people's lives and households. All right? Consider these 4 basic points. Inflation has been infrequent in U.S. economic history. It has actually receded quickly once its underlying cause has been addressed, without the need even to raise interest rates. For instance, in World War II, inflation peaked at 14.4%. Talked about it, but quickly dropped to negative 1% by 1949, even though interest rates were still only 2%. Inflation is not a monetary phenomenon. Exactly. Inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. No, inflation is always and everywhere an energy phenomenon. I tell you, that's what I coined. In other words, In other words, it's not a function or artifact of the Fed putting copious amounts of new money in the economy. For the 47 largest countries in the world, we have sufficient data. There have been only 30 instances where money supply doubled in 5 or fewer years, all right? For the 47 largest countries where we have sufficient data, there have been only 30 instances where money supply doubled in 5 or fewer years. Of those, only 7 were followed by inflation, meaning that more than 3/4 of the time where we had a money supply double in 5 or fewer years, 3/4 of the time was not followed by high inflation. Further, high inflation has often not been preceded by high money supply growth. High inflation has often not been preceded by high monetary supply growth. A similar pattern holds for high government debt. Although raising rates would help tame inflation, it does so only in the most blunt and painful way. With a highly favorable 0.17% increase in CPI in July, we now have mild inflation for 13 consecutive months. And that favorable trend started when interest rates were only 2%, which is well below today's crushing rates. And I like the rates they are now, especially about ready to retire. The current weight of inflation is largely by combined product of the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. Yep, because Russia and Ukraine have long been key suppliers of some of the world's most important commodities: oil, natural gas, and wheat. Oil and natural gas are part of the energy mix, my friends. With the war, the price of these commodities shot up astronomically, but those prices have abated. These 3 commodities play an outside role in determining inflation levels around the world. Analysts estimated that about 1/3 of the U.S. inflation rate in summer 2022 was due to the Ukraine war. Yet there is almost universal conviction it was government spending, government debt, profligate printing of money were the real culprits. This meant that the primary solution being employed was to raise interest rates because we were looking at the wrong problem. It was government spending, government debt. Some were even convinced that the Fed had waited too long to raise rates and thus missed the opportunity to control inflation. But we just talked about it. Inflation started down when interest rates were only 2%. Setting aside the inconvenient truth that the initial rate increase occurred less than 1 month after the Russian invasion, these critics argued the Fed had only moved quicker. We could have contained inflation. This theory is widely espoused in the 1970s and has subsequently taken the form of dogma, 100%. Again, as I always say, you can see my videos I've done. Paul Volcker did not kill inflation. Enough of the Paul Volcker freaking glory. It's crazy. We've had 4 decades of new experience of data since the 1970s, spread across a wide number of countries, and the data refutes the dogma resoundingly. Inflation has not improved because of high interest rates, but has instead improved as supply chains have been remedied and energy prices have come back down. We still have the future price flare-ups from the continued war, and Europe will struggle more than the U.S. with inflation since ill-advised energy dependence on Russia has meant the price of natural gas is 5 times higher in Europe than it is in the United States. Among economic calamities, including banking crisis, stock market crashes, inflation has impacted the world at least on a GDP-weighted basis. But because its impact on households is so direct and painful, it's highly consequential politically, which is why it should always command our attention. Man, it's great. Let's see what his comments are. Let's read some comments. My man Eric Stubbs, nicely done, says Ray. Clearly, so these guys have obviously not read my book, because they read my book. Eric and Ray would say, yeah, Josh, thanks for such clarity. Relax and retire. Debunking inflation myths. Oh, boy. You got to read my book. So let's see here. We got Philip Francis. He disagrees. There are different types of inflation due to different factors, but the size of the monetary base most definitely can create inflation. Well, it can. Doesn't mean it will or has. No one's saying it can't. It's just saying in of itself, because of the monetary supply growth, does not mean inflation is imminent or immediate, or both. As long as the velocity remains, there's all the velocity stuff. In the case of, do we not remember Japan? Oh my goodness, let's keep going. In the case of supply-demand imbalance causes price should be moderated. As the comment that inflation is not common, I have a 100-year graph of CPI hanging in my office that says differently. Our government runs on low inflation. Well, I mean, okay, a 100-year graph of CPI. All right, no one's saying there isn't any inflation. No one's saying there are prices going up. Of course, there's some prices going up. That's the whole thing about my book, man. I talk about it. But if you're measuring it via CPI, what the hell? Does this guy not know how CPI is measured? Come on, man. Who's this guy? Philip, do you not know how CPI is measured? Do we not know how the history of CPI? Here's Larry Swedrow. He says, I would just suggest, he doesn't like my Richard's take. I would suggest reading someone who knows about inflation, apparently because the guy Richard doesn't know about inflation. It's causes like John Cochrane, his book, The Fiscal Theory of the Price Revel, and reading the newest post on his blog. All right. Richard's thoughts don't exactly mirror my thoughts, but still, like my man John, this guy's crushing. I just did an article on a video on him the other day. Whether that is to his credit or not, my one caveat is Philip's point. Monetary policy certainly can cause inflation, but I agree with Richard that the U.S. 2022 is not one of the cases. It was instead the end. What I'm saying. Here, Ron Sears. I agree with Philip. Their demand pull inflation is caused by supply. Man, other big heavy hitters coming out. Any inflation is also caused by corporations raising prices because they can. All right. That is Ray. All right, whatever. So anyway, one sector raising. Okay, anyway. All right, it's good stuff, man. Anyway, so all these, I'm trying to watch my mouth because I don't want to be belligerent. All these people say, the monetary supply, inflation. It's just, oh my goodness. It's just, I can't take it. Do people just not think, like for 2 seconds, not just think, but is there something deeper here? And the answer is they just don't. And that's why I'm here. That's why you should subscribe if you haven't. And that's why you should buy my book, Relax or Retire. I'll put a link in the show notes. We'll see you. Love your thoughts.